In the high ridges of the Appalachians, trust is a rare currency. And a single flat tire can lead to a debt that never clears.
Bless up, family. Michello in the building. Listen up, everybody wants that quiet mountain life until the ghosts in the walls start asking for an extra 35 racks. This story is Wild Star. It's got old farmhouses, bad math, and a biker gang acting as the collection agency. Let's get into the mix.
Thank you, Michello. Today we examine the anatomy of a real estate extortion, a predatory maneuver most commonly known as the squeeze. Robert had traveled to this specific stretch of the Appalachians because he'd seen a farmhouse that spoke to him. He was well aware that the structure was a skeleton of its former self. It would require years of labor and significant capital to make it habitable. To Robert, it wasn't a burden, it was a dream project. But before the house was even in question, Robert met the local law. The Iron Ridge Syndicate. They didn't ask questions. They operated with a silent mechanical efficiency. One of them was able to replace Robert's compromised tire in under 4 minutes. It was a professional courtesy, one that came with a heavy price for a different man. One of them leaned in. He gave Robert a message for a man named Gary, the real estate agent handling the farmhouse. He told Robert to tell him that the clock is ticking.
Whoa, so Robert hasn't even signed a paper yet, and he already knows the man selling the house is walking on thin ice.
The farm had been on the market for 2 years, static, unwanted. The property belonged to the Miller family, who had held the deed for 3 generations before the mountain economy turned cold. They weren't looking for a bidding war, they were looking for a steward, someone to respect the timber and the history they were leaving behind. And then there was Gary, the agent with a secret ledger and a gambling habit. Robert delivered the message. The syndicate's warning was clear. Gary's time was up. Gary's physiological response to the message was immediate. His adrenaline spiked, but without an outlet for flight, he simply froze. He needed a large sum of money, and he needed it quick. Then, 2 days before closing the deal, Gary called Robert with a new development. Gary claimed a mystery buyer had suddenly placed a bid of $30,000 over Robert's initial offer. But Gary suggested he could save the house for him if Robert would agree to bid $35,000.
35 grand? That's not a commission, that's a ransom! Gary is desperate!
Robert knew the terrain. He knew the farmhouse. And he knew a lie when he heard one. He wasn't raised to be a fool. He chose to walk away. Let's pause to discuss the protocol for handling phantom offers, or a squeeze. When you encounter this type of scams, always demand written disclosure of the competing bid. Audit the timeline. 2 years of silence followed by a 48-hour rush is a red flag. Be prepared to lose your survey fees. They are cheaper than a bad mortgage. Check for dual agency. Is the agent representing both sides? If you sense fraud, cut communication. You are the one with the capital. After 3 months passed, Robert had written off the farmhouse as a lost cause. By coincidence, he encountered the sellers in town, but they were surprised to see him standing. They had been told Robert was gravely ill, that he was forced to withdraw.
Oh, Gary, you didn't just lie about the money, you gave the man a disease.
Robert sat them down. He told them about the $35,000 squeeze. The sellers were horrified. They hadn't seen a penny of this mystery bid. They realized their agent was a predator. They decided to act.
It's about to go down. Gary's house of cards is falling.
They moved with surgical precision. They bypassed Gary's agency entirely. Private solicitors were engaged. The contracts were identical to the original, minus the parasite. Gary saw his world collapsing. The notification of the withdrawn listing hit his desk like a terminal diagnosis.
He's still thinking about that message from the syndicate. Oh boy! The clock is ticking, Gary. You should have played fair.
The Iron Ridge Syndicate does not appreciate delays. They were no longer whispering. Desperate, Gary drove to the farmhouse. He begged the sellers to let him back in. He was met with the cold steel of the mountains.
That's the end of the road, and Gary knows he's out of time.
Let us conclude the educational portion. Always think about the appraisal gap. So never pay for value that hasn't been appraised. Gary's $35,000 did not exist in the wood or the stone. If an agent threatens you with a loss of property to force a bid, notify the board. Remember, protection is found in the law. 2 weeks later, the sale was finalized. Robert owned the farmhouse.
Look at the flex. Robert's got the keys in the piece.
The day the public records updated, the clock finally stopped. Gary's office was found in a state of abrupt departure. The investigation yielded little. Gary's vehicle was located weeks later, abandoned on a remote, unmarked dirt road deep in the holler.
Weeks later? Man, in these mountains, if you aren't found in 48 hours, you're cooked!
There were no signs of a struggle, just an empty car and the sound of the wind. In town, the theories vary. Some say Gary is in Florida, others look at the ravines. But in the Appalachians, some things are better left buried in the hollows.
This was a heavy one, Lord of Mercy. Facts. You tried to inflate the price with lies, and the universe is gonna let the air out of you. Gary thought he was building a fortune, but he ended up with a closed shop and literally ghosted. Don't play yourself. Stay tasty, everyone. Watch the ridges.
Help us grow. If you want more real internet stories and Michello's wisdom, hit like and subscribe.